The hearing's not until 7:10, so you got 10 minutes.
Oh, Mike, he needs you.
Mike, he needs you.
I'm too glad I brought him.
That's last week.
Yeah. Oh, is that us now? No, oh, we're on now? Oh. Okay, call the meeting to order at 7:00. Oh, no, we're not. Okay, now we are. Call the meeting to order at 7:02 p.m. Thank you, everybody, for joining us tonight. Acceptance of the minutes.
I need to accept the minutes as printed.
I'll second the motion.
All in favor?
Aye.
They are approved. Department heads and committees. I do not see any this evening. We have one appointment tonight for constable, which is the reappointment of Lawrence Caballeras of Raynham. It has the chief's approval. What's the board's pleasure?
Move to appoint.
Second the motion.
All in favor?
Aye.
That is approved. Public hearings scheduled for 7:10. We'll go back to that after. Fall town meeting warrant under new business. The board has had a chance to review the document. Randy, I understand, has made a few minor, more so cosmetic tweaks to that. Randy, do you have any comments on that?
On that note, I think the free cash came in a little bit lower than we thought, so we did have to make some adjustments. But it's still, everything fits, I think, and so we're good to go on that. There's some interesting articles on here, so hopefully we'll get a good turnout.
Perfect. Any questions from the board?
No, I agree with Randy, and I approve of all of the changes that were made, and I was glad to see that we did get the two bylaws in
Correct.
for the people's vote. So I will vote to accept the warrant as printed
And close it.
and close it.
And I'll second the motion.
All in favor?
Aye.
That is approved. Old business, Mr. Shivo.
Aye.
Mrs. Smith.
I have none.
Town administrator's report, Mr. Buckner.
Okay. Town council applicants and associate town council are still under review, and hopefully we'll have an announcement sometime in the next few weeks. Mark is with us a few more weeks. Fall town meeting, everyone knows, I think by now, Tuesday, October 29th at 7 p.m. Pre-town meeting, October 22nd at 7 p.m. The pre-town meeting is here in this room. Warrants will be printed and mailed to our residents prior to the pre-town meeting. On the EPA stormwater regulations, they're getting ready to issue updated regulations which cities and towns will have to abide by, and no doubt they're going to be costly. There's mapping involved and monitoring of stormwater outfalls. So to address this, SERSID is putting together a proposal, a grant application to the state, and all 19 municipalities in SERSID have expressed an interest in being a part of it. So it would supply equipment and training to people like the highway department, people that are going to have to do the monitoring, et cetera. So on the South Coast Rail, a couple of open houses. One of them was in Taunton tonight, so that notice, we got that notice a little late, but Fall River, the next one is Fall River on October 17th, and that's at between 5:30 and 7:30. A couple upcoming, Columbus Day, of course, is next Monday, and town offices will be closed. We have a department head meeting coming up Thursday, October 17th, and SMHG Steering Committee Monday, October 21st in Easton.
Thank you, Randy. Any questions for Randy?
None, sir.
Okay, Selectmen's report. Mr. Shivo. Mrs. Smith.
I don't really have a report, but I do have a comment to make, if I may.
Please do.
And that's from our infamous Kathleen Roberts.
Yeah.
Everybody, I'm sure, in town has been calling her and congratulating her, but I wanted to do it from this board, too, that we congratulate her on her debut at Fenway Park. and say thank you for us having a Kathleen Roberts, who's now 99. That's it.
Correspondence we have from Mass DOT, and this is some good news. The federal government and the state have finally come together and issued our reimbursement for the damages that we incurred and subsequently paid for as a result of that massive storm back in 2010 that we're all familiar with. So that money is on the way. We have from the Office of the Administrator of the town of West Bridgewater a letter regarding the proposal for slot machines at Raynham Park, and that was CC'd to us as the potential host community. And Randy, do you have a gist as what this says?
Well, they want to be recognized as a surrounding community and basically be eligible for mitigation.
Money.
Yeah.
They want money. From the United Nations of Greater Boston, requesting our issuance of a UN Day proclamation regarding UN Day, and they encourage us to conduct model UN simulations and encourage libraries to show displays on the United Nations. They've attached, and actually Deb, fortunately for us, has typed one up based on their sample. What's the board's pleasure?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
That is approved. We have a letter of interest for the vacancy on the Business and Economic Development Commission from Matthew Henry of 113 Crimson Street in Raynham, who has lived in town for a number of years with his wife and their three children. As the board's pleasure, to forward to Chairman Noblin.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
That is approved. We have an invitation from Bristol Plymouth for their annual open house at BP on Saturday, October 19th from 12 noon till 3 p.m. And as a very proud alumnus, I would encourage my colleagues to join me there and anybody in the public who wants to see what I consider one of the top educational institutions in the Commonwealth. Activity report from the Fire Department, September 2013, another increase in calls for service. They did over 121 calls, and we appreciate the chiefs letting us know of that. We will go back to correspondence after, seeing now as the time is 7:10. Ma'am, are you all set? Okay, perfect. The Board of Selectmen of the Town of Raynham, Massachusetts, in its capacity as cable television licensing issuing authority, has scheduled a public hearing to be held on October 8th at 7:10 p.m. at Town Hall, 558 South Main Street, Raynham, Mass. 02767. The purpose of this hearing is to assess the qualifications of Verizon New England with regards to its application for a cable television license in the Town of Raynham and deliberate on Verizon's proposed cable television license. The Board of Selectmen may take final action on Verizon New England Incorporated's proposed cable television license. Any relevant applications, reports, statements, and amendments to be considered at this hearing that constitute public records under the state law are available for public inspection during normal, regular business hours and for reproduction at a reasonable fee at the office of the town clerk. For more information on the hearing, interested parties may call Mr. Buckner, and that is by the Board of Selectmen. I will call that hearing to order at 7:10 p.m. promptly. And Chairman Ellis, would you like to start it off for us? Or should I go to council?
Why don't you go to the council?
Council? Bill, do you just mind attending the podium?
Thank you. Chairman Pacheco, Board of Selectmen. I'm Bill August from the law firm of Epstein & August LLP in Boston, and as you know, I have worked, represented the Board of Selectmen as cable license issuing authority in this Verizon cable licensing process, and have been working closely and meeting with the Raynham Cable Advisory Committee and coordinating the licensing process with the town administrator, Randall Buckner. We're in a very, the Cable Committee has been meeting regularly, negotiating the proposed license with Verizon. They've been working the document word by word and line by line, so it's been a very diligent and thorough process. And on October 1st, 2013, last week, the Cable Committee, acting in an advisory capacity, of course, voted unanimously to recommend the Verizon proposed license to you, the licensing authority. So, although the final decision, of course, rests with the Selectmen, it is relevant for your deliberations that the Cable Committee did recommend the proposed license, which you have before you, and we're here to discuss and answer any questions. I'll just say, by way of brief summary, the Cable Committee felt very positive about the package and the technicalities and the different protections and terms and conditions of the license. One of the guiding principles was for the Verizon cable license to match what Comcast is providing, so there would be an equitable terms and conditions applicable to the incumbent cable company and the proposed competitive applicant, Verizon. And Verizon did match the Comcast terms and conditions in all the critical areas, such as the annual support for the Raynham local facilities, the local studio, the public educational and governmental community programming, the provision of local channels, and actually it exceeds the Comcast license in terms of the line extension language and the density standards that are applicable. So with Verizon doing as much as Comcast in the document in terms of the financial support for Raynham's community studio and channels, and providing a strong overall package in all other regards as found by the Cable Committee, I also feel, based on my experience working with municipalities and in Verizon and Comcast licensing proceedings, that you're in a very good position to move forward and act on the committee's recommendation to sign the license at this time.
Great. Thank you, Counsel. Any questions for Counsel? We can always go back to him after.
Right. I mean, I have one or two little procedural things. I just wanted to
Please.
provide the stenographer with a copy of the legal advertisement newspaper notice published 7 and 14 days before tonight's hearing as Exhibit A, to have that in the record as required by the regulations. And then we have a minor Exhibit B. Just to be diligent, we asked Verizon to inspect the 4 video origination locations to be interconnected under the license, over the next several months. As Verizon builds out, it will be connecting to the town offices to originate video, to the Bridgewater Raynham Regional High School. I'm not sure of the exact name of the regional high school. La Liberté, is that how you say it? School. And another location. And the point was just that since the community is dependent on the cable operators picking up the local programming from various locations, we just wanted to know beforehand that those locations were inspected, and as of the time of the inspection, they had suitable environmental conditions and were technically operable for cable casting. So we have an informal communication just confirming that Verizon inspected the sites and the sites are okay for the PEG access video origination. So I would just provide that to become part of the record to the stenographer as Exhibit B. And the big thing is you will have competition, which is what all the towns most crave in terms of different, in terms of cable service. Only about a third of Massachusetts towns, actually less than a third of Massachusetts towns, have a competitive service. So this is a very good thing for the Raynham consumer, and the whole process from the municipal perspective and the cable committee's perspective has been primarily or significantly motivated by their awareness of the town's interest and the public's interest in having competition. I also note that this has been a very transparent and public process. Much earlier in the process, Verizon filed a lengthy application, which as of the recommencement of the licensing process has been in the town clerk's office in the public cable file, available as a public record. So this, and I think we all, as set out in the application, but as we all know from seeing Verizon in action, Verizon, does clearly have the technical, engineering, financial, and management qualifications and abilities. So we know what we're dealing with, and it's a top company, and that's all set out in the documentation in the license application form. The public notices in the newspapers explain how all the application and the draft licenses at each version have been also available for public inspection. So we've really tried to have a totally transparent and public record and process, and I think we've been very successful at it. Finally, I would just like to particularly thank all involved, the cable committee, Bob, Debbie, Tim, and Kevin, and I guess Jerry's not here, Jerry Gibbs, have met regularly, consistently, done a great job. Mike Halen from the Access Corporation, I want to hire him to work for me on figuring out access funding and language. He's really a sharp, terrific job. And the whole committee, really worked on the document word by word. Randall Buckner has been available to me on numerous occasions to move the process along. And likewise, Verizon has been a very fair, equitable, and approached this as a partnership. I don't think anyone on the committee felt anything but, or experienced anything but can do, let's work it out, let's find a compromise that works for everyone. From Jill Reddish, from Verizon, and Pamela Goldstein from Verizon's law department, and I see Peter Bowman and Mayor Yusevich now on the Verizon staff, also with a municipal background. So it's a good team. The committee was very pleased with the movement and compromise on all the language and other related issues.
Thank you, Councilor. Chairman Ellis, any comments that you want to hold on?
Actually, I would like to make a couple of. First, I want to thank Attorney August for the kind words he gave to all of us, and also thank him for the work that he did to help us along the way, and the work behind the scenes he also did to make sure everything was the best it could be. I want the town to know also that Verizon's policies have not changed from what it was a few years ago, with the exception of Raynham and Medway? Medford. Medford. Oh, there's only two cities or towns there they've reopened negotiations with, and Raynham was one of the two. So I think we're very lucky that Verizon chose to come back to us. And as Attorney August said, we do readily recommend that the Board of Selectmen approve this contract. We have worked hard, and we're very proud of the work that we did.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And I just to add, Kevin, while you're up there, I think they might have came back in part because of you and your tenacity over the past 7 years. I think almost regularly on a weekly basis, emailing Verizon and imploring them to join our phenomenal town.
What are you talking about, Bill? Joe, what are you talking about? I'm a very shy person. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Counsel, do you want me to turn it over to the applicant?
Yes, please.
Okay. To Verizon.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman. Thank you. My name is Peter Bowman. I'm Vice President of Government Affairs, and Attorney August had introduced the other members of the Verizon team that are here with me this evening. I have worked with Bill a lot in the past, and I do want to compliment Attorney August for helping us get to the point we are tonight. Also want to thank the Cable Committee because, as Mr. August said, they were very attentive to all the issues and worked with us to move this process through quickly. Also want to thank the board and the town administrator for giving us the opportunity to appear before you this evening. I'll be very brief in my remarks. I think Attorney August did a good job of summarizing where we are. But just so you do understand, officially before you is Verizon Communications. We're a $116 billion Dow 30 company. We're financially sound. We've invested hundreds of millions of dollars in building out our FiOS network throughout the country. It is a fiber optic network that has been built here in the town of Raynham, so that we have brought fiber, or in the process of bringing fiber to all residential premises in the town of Raynham. We're supported locally by highly trained union personnel that work with us to come and install the service. If you're calling our offices, most likely your call is being answered up in one of our offices. We have an office right down the street here in Taunton. We have another one in Andover. With a lot of hundreds of customer service representatives, like I said, located right here in Massachusetts. We're pleased to be before you here. As you know, and as has been mentioned earlier, Verizon is not expanding FiOS in any new communities. We've really been focusing our resources on building out where we already prior had franchises. So Raynham and Medford, as was mentioned earlier, we're in unique situations. Raynham, all right. And I'm from Boston, so. No, that's good. I appreciate that. So we're really excited that we do have the opportunity to be here before you. Currently in town, if you have aerial service, we've already built out to that. So within a very short period, if the license was approved and signed tonight, we would be able to begin offering our FiOS service. So that, and then the buried, we are in the process of, starting that process now to get that work completed as soon as possible. So we really just want to compliment everyone on bringing us to this point tonight. We hope and ask the board to rule on this favorably. We're here to answer any questions that you might have about Verizon or the process. Like I said, I have other members of the Verizon team that could assist in answering any questions. So once again, I just really want to thank everyone for bringing us to this point, and happy to answer any questions that anyone may have.
We'll go to the board and then public. Mr. Shiver, any questions?
What's the similarity between Medford and Raynham that causes these two towns to be blessed with the revision of service?
When we really got to completing our build, there were a couple of communities in Massachusetts, really those two that you just mentioned, that had a lot of build already completed.
I see.
So we have looked at those communities and said where there is a lot of significant amount of the build was completed. The business has looked at that and said, let's finish off those communities. So we did Medford late last year, and now we're here. So
That's good. Thank you.
just
Mr.
those two
Smith.
communities.
The timeframe
The-
on getting everything up and going?
Right, I mean, the time frame really right now is anything that's aerial, we're already selling, data services, voice services over that FiOS network. So if you have telephone poles in front of your house, we're currently offering service there. So within a couple of weeks at the most, we would hope to be able to then, anywhere that the service is aerial, begin to offer FiOS TV as the third component of the triple play. And then we would begin virtually immediately working with your DPW head to begin the process of building out the buried so that we could get that done as soon as possible.
Just one quick question for you. Can you touch briefly on the coverage map? It's my understanding that your service now might actually reach more homes in Raynham than Comcast in terms of overall coverage.
Right. I think as Attorney August said, I mean, the franchise does cover the entire town. And our density requirements are more liberal than in Comcast. I mean, Comcast density requirements was 60 homes per mile. We're at 30 homes per mile. But it's really our hope to be able to serve, all customers. I mean, that's why we're here. So it's our goal to really try to get to everyone that we can possibly get to.
Good. Thank you.
Clarification. I just wanted to clarify that I was saying the Verizon build-out density standard is more favorable than the Comcast, but that does not, than the current Comcast standard. But that does not equate with building out more total homes than Comcast, because most of the Comcast build-out occurred prior to Comcast's adoption of its current density standard. So, for example, Verizon will build out all of the homes in Raynham served by aerial plant, wires in the air between the utility poles. And that's about 68 to 70% of the homes. And that's already built, which I would just ask for confirmation for the record that the 68, 70% served by aerial plant, that's already built out?
That's correct.
Okay, so all of the aerial will be within the coverage map. Of the remaining approximately 30% that's reachable by underground plant, conduit of some kind, there's a density standard of 30 homes per mile, and it's that density standard that is lower than the current Comcast density standard, which is the 60 homes per underground mile. So the aerial plant already built. The underground plant, in answer to Select Board Smith's question, has the standard Verizon 4-year time frame for build-out for that smaller portion of the town that is served by underground, and that meets the 30 homes per mile. It's the 4-year total time frame for build-out, and that's as good as in any of the other Verizon licenses. And we started the process. The Verizon proposal was a 5-year build-out for the underground plant, and we did negotiate that down to be on par with all the other Massachusetts licenses that we looked at, the 4-year timetable for the underground.
Thank you, Counsel.
Thank you.
At this point, I'll open it up to the public. Any questions or comments for Verizon? If so, please go to the podium. No questions or comments from the public. Mr. Luciano.
Yes, I'll ask one. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Gordon Luciano, resident tonight. During my tenure on the school committee, which thankfully ended and I was able to regain my sanity, one of the major issues that came up during that period, and we had tried to work with, at the time, Congressman Markey's office to no avail, because he was chairman of the Telecommunications Commission, or committee in Washington, was this whole thing about designated market area. And we were in the Providence designated market area, and yet we share a regional school system with the town of Bridgewater, which is in Plymouth County. We're in Bristol County. Bridgewater was in the Boston designated market area. Raynham was in the Providence designated market area. And we as a school committee, and the selectmen at the time, and the cable commission at the time, raised a concern of public safety with that issue. And by that, the notifications that go out whenever there's a major issue, for example, an escape at the prison system in Bridgewater, or other type of events when we need to get a hold of our community and our parents in an immediate nature, goes out through Boston media. Doesn't go out through Providence. Our residents are focused on Boston television stations, Boston radio stations to an extent. And we were very concerned at the time where there was a movement underway with some of the Comcast channels where they were going to, there was talk of dropping the Boston channel. For example, if it's Fox in Boston, they were only going to show Fox in Rhode Island, et cetera. And at the time, we were able to at least get a verbal agreement that that would not happen on these emergency type of announcements. And I'm going back about 5 years, I think, Randy, right, when we had all of that. So maybe through you, Mr. Chairman, to Verizon, where are we with that? What is Verizon's feeling on this whole designated market area? And would you be able to, at least at this time, verbally commit to something like that if it ever came down to having to pick stations? Would you continue to support Raynham in wanting to remain or at least have access to those Boston media outlets?
Well, I can answer that. I can tell you what the channel lineup looks like today. And we are carrying both the Providence broadcast affiliates and the Boston affiliates. So right now you'll be able to see both channels.
But if there's ever an issue that the Providence media market tries to invoke that DMA and knock off these Boston channels, which was being threatened at the time when we were involved in this. Matter of fact, I think Fox pulled it off, didn't they? They only show the local news now, but not the regular programming.
That's true.
That's a concern, as a parent still, a parent in the school system, for these emergency notifications. Not just storm notifications, but the prison thing is big, because we had an escape one time during my tenure as chairman of the school committee, and it was very concerning to our parents. And most of the notifications, the emergency broadcasting came from Boston TV. And I'm really, this whole DMA thing for Raynham is wrong. And I'm not sure who now would be a good voice for that from a political standpoint, but I think the cable companies could be our allies in that effort of the community to try and have that designation changed for Raynham. It's because we're in Bristol County,
Right.
but we're at the very northern end of Bristol County. We're 30 miles from Boston. Well, I don't have to tell you. I mean, our government sits in Boston. We don't sit in Providence.
Right. We have several communities that are in what we call the Bristol County channel lineup. And they, I will be honest, when we first rolled out years and years ago, and Peter worked on this as well, we did just have the Providence channels. And because there was a strong demand for, our customers had this strong demand to get the Boston channels, and for all the same reasons you point out, Verizon added all the Boston channels. But we still are under FCC rules that if there's a syndicated program, the Providence DMA, we would have to black it out on the Boston channel. And that's not something that Verizon opts to do, it's something that we're required to do.
So last question, if I may, then. If that's the case and a channel's being blacked out during a particular show, but if an emergency notification started to come out through the Boston network, would you be able to override that blackout and broadcast those emergency notifications?
I'd have to go back and check that, I just wouldn't know.
Okay, because that's still an issue, and that's one we, as a community, should continue to pursue. My only hope would be Verizon would, if they are issued the license by the Selectmen, that they would be partners with us in that effort and would not oppose that effort of the town to try and get us redesignated to the Boston DMA. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Luciano. Any other questions or comments from the public? Seeing none.
Could I just make one?
Yeah, do you mind just going?
Logistical comment. Bill August, Special Cable Counsel again. Just a logistical footnote for the benefit of the selectmen. I mentioned that Jill Reddish has been very helpful in the process. Once the license is executed in my other communities, Jill Reddish has continued as the point person and liaison to the selectmen and the cable committee. So if you do have questions, why is the truck there, why is this wire, whatever, Jill has proven to be, and I thank Jill for this, an invaluable, community-minded Verizon representative, and is designated to continue. I just wanted to confirm you're continuing in that role even after the issuance of the license. Okay.
Thank you, Council.
Thank you.
No other questions or comments? Sir? And if you could just state your name for the record?
Yes, Bob Bunker, I'm a resident. For a myriad of reasons, I'm here to hope that you do pass the Verizon contract. I'm not going to go into everything that's happened in the past, but we want some competition. Me with a fixed income is trying to save some money and also get TV that we watch a lot of. And I think for the citizens of Raynham to be able to look at TV and save some money, and it's quality television, obviously, I'm all in favor of this, and I can only speak for myself.
Thank you, sir. Ma'am?
I'm Dorothy McClellan. I'm also a Raynham resident, and I echo his thoughts. I'd like some competition, that's all.
Okay,
It'd
thank
be
you.
nice to have another vendor to choose from.
Thank you. Any other questions or comments? Any questions or comments from the board before we wrap up?
Just to Mr. Luciano's point, I'm inferring that you, Jill, will pursue his concern and work actively with our committee to see if that issue can be resolved? I will. Okay. For the record?
Just Michael Hale on the Raynham Channel. Just for the committee, everyone here's point. It's an FCC rule is why they do it. It's not Verizon deciding to not show the local channels. So, for instance, in the morning you get Fox 25 News. If you want to watch American Idol, like I know you all enjoy, you're gonna have to. You're gonna turn on Fox 25. It's gonna be black. You have to go to PRI to watch it. That's not them or Comcast doing it. It's the FCC. So it's a Washington thing, not a Verizon or Comcast thing. Just so everyone knows.
Thanks, Mike. Last call.
Okay, can I make one more clarification, please?
Yeah.
One reason why Fox has been blacked out on the Boston Channel is because it is still, according to the FCC, considered a religious channel as it started a lifetime ago. It is not considered an entertainment channel. So Fox could be blanked out where the other network channels were not able to be done because Fox is only a religious channel. Even though it does have as much, if not more, entertainment programs on it as the regular NBC, ABC, and CBS channels. According to the FCC, they never changed what the designation was when they first came on the air as a religious station.
Okay, thank you, Kevin. Any other questions or comments from the board? What is the board's pleasure?
At this point in time, I just want to say thank you to all of the committees for all of the work that they have done on it, and I, for one, would accept the contract.
I'm very much in favor of the program that they've put together, and I certainly would vote in favor of it.
Any other questions? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. That is approved unanimously. Thank you. The public hearing is now closed at 7:41 p.m. Does the board want to take a 2-minute recess to allow? Yeah. Can I have a motion for that?
Second.
All in favor? We'll be adjourned for approximately 2 minutes. Okay, thank everybody for their patience. Thank you. We're returning at 7:49 p.m. Go back to the remainder of correspondence. For the vacant seat on the Bristol Plymouth School Committee, we have 3 applications: Shayla Reardon of Baker Road in Raynham, Tim Hollick of Raynham, and Richard Bastian of Raynham. Does the board want to bring them in at a future meeting?
Yes, please.
possibly next week.
Possibly,
Randy,
if you
what's our
could.
schedule next week?
Good.
Okay.
22nd
Yeah,
is
let's
the,
do it next
Randy can schedule that? Okay.
Great.
Final piece of correspondence is from James and Donna Sars. No address given. I had read this earlier, Mr. Buckner and I had mentioned this in regards to a complaint on what the authors characterize as an aggressive dog in the neighborhoods of Sherwood Lane and Nottingham Drive. Police and animal control were involved in the incident in question. A report, it appears, was taken by animal control. And it is the author's opinion that this incident could have resulted in serious injury. We believe the dog to be an extremely aggressive animal, and if no action against the owners of this vicious dog will taken, it's only a matter of time before a tragic incident occurs with a child or adult. Any comments from the board?
At this point, the dog did the dog actually bite any?
Sir, are you the author? If you could go to the podium. Is it Sars, sir?
Saris, close.
Saris.
Very good. That's very good.
What's your address, sir?
160 Sherwood Lane.
Okay, do you care to elaborate? Randy, do you mind getting that door first?
In fact, the reporting of the responding officer is outside. My wife had dialed 911. It happened, we were walking on Sherwood Lane. We were taking the turn over to Nottingham. The dog came straight out, stopped in front of us. We turned around, turned our backs, started walking back towards Sherwood Lane. So we thought everything would be fine. Then the dog started following us on, first of all, the dog, as far as I know, is unlicensed. You should know that. Secondly, the dog is loose. Okay, this is out on the street. This isn't in the yard, dog barking from the yard. The dog was following us in the middle of the street. Okay? So the dog started following us from behind. We were on Sherwood Lane in front of the dog's property. The dog jumped in front of us, stopped us in our tracks, would not let us pass, growling and showing its teeth. So I put myself between the dog, my wife, and the dog. I had my wife go to the neighbor's house, to the door. While she was doing that, she was dialing 911 on the cell phone. So there's a 911 call of the incident. So I stayed there until she was in a good position. Then I backed away from the dog while we were waiting for the police to respond. If I had moved forward towards my property, that dog would have bit. There's no doubt in my mind. I deal with that in what I do. So the police came, the dog went into the backyard just before the police came. They observed the situation, we explained the situation, as to what happened. I had my wife walk back to the house. She was very shaken up by the incident. Later came to find out that the neighbor across the street, they're scared to death of the dog. The dog's loose. The neighbor adjacent to the house, scared. That dog is in their yard, running loose. Neighbor on Sherwood Lane, come to find out, was walking their dog, and that dog stopped them. So this dog is an aggressive dog. It should be pointed out to you folks that they have an oak tree in the front yard with a rope hanging from the oak tree that the dog can grab onto and spin around. As you know, pit bulls are known for grasping, and they have that right in their front yard. If you took a ride down Sherwood Lane, you'd see that right in the front yard. Come to find which Casey, the dog officer, came over, told him what had happened. We both went over to the neighbor. She was out there cutting the grass, explained to her the situation. She apologized for, the incident. And I said, look, I have to go forward with this before something happens. If this dog is allowed to be running around. It's only and again, as I said in my last statement, it's only a matter of time. If this is a child walking around, you're going to be dealing with a tragedy with this dog being on the loose. I know there's not much we can do because the dog didn't bite. Unfortunately, if I had known that the dog was going to bite, I would have probably had it bit so I could take it even further at this point.
I guess my question is, sir, what are you looking for this board to do, or is this just more an informational purpose.
Well, I believe you, I'm not sure what your powers are as far as this situation is concerned, but if you can't even walk down your own street, we have a problem.
My understanding is, unless and until, and unfortunately it happens that way, but unless and until the animal attacks, we really don't have any jurisdiction or authority. I mean, this is, in my opinion, is definitely not a situation where legally we could even attempt to euthanize this dog.
I'm not looking for that.
Yeah, you know, and typically when you deal with a dangerous dog in a hearing, that's what's being asked of, and that's what we're legally obliged to consider. So outside of that, and I don't think legally that that's an option. I don't know what else we do. If it's not licensed, obviously, we can follow up on that, but outside of getting them to license the dog, I don't know of any other resource or recourse this board has.
The dog officer indicated to me that they have, he can have things as far as quarantining the dog to the yard or making the owner have a muzzle on the dog if the dog is out. Obviously, the dog's loose, that's a problem.
Yeah.
Obviously, the point about pursuing whether or not they have a dog license is certainly something we should do. I would suggest we ask our health agent to check into what possibilities there are, short of the, you know, the extreme things that would be necessary if the dog bit. But I know that, you know, that the leash thing is an issue, but I'm not sure how much it can be enforced. But I would ask the health agent to check into this and give us some further input, because it's obviously a serious situation.
Health or animal control?
Well, I don't, I'm not so sure. Well, okay, I just think that it's something that we might get some input on. I know the ACO is, you know, has a job, but I'm not sure of what, you know, what kind of responsibility in terms of looking at options in the future. I think a dog running around loose, you don't think that there's anything with that board?
I'm questioning our leash law.
That's what I...
Leash law.
I think typically those are when they're being walked. I mean, when animals get off the premises, you're technically not walking them, and so there's...
Well, I always thought that a leash law meant a dog couldn't be anywhere without a leash. If it was in the premises, it would have to be within a fence.
I'm not so sure we do have a bylaw.
I think we ought to double check on that bylaw and see how we can strengthen it.
I think what you're seeing is some discussion. I mean, I don't sense any opposition to exploring options, but
No, absolutely not.
it's always been our practice to make sure we don't promise anything to anybody, especially in this situation.
I think Casey has, the dog officer has some good ideas as far as what he can do legally.
For example, what would that be?
As far as, you know, muzzling the dog or making sure the dog remains on the property, or face fines, the owners would have to face fines. And from what I understand, they're not even the owners, the people we talked to, the owners of the resident, they said it was their daughter's dog.
Well, whether or not, excuse me for jumping in, I'm sorry.
I mean, we don't know if the dog has its shots, if it's up to date.
Exactly.
I mean, that's where I think you were going with the Board of Health type of question.
Yeah, I mean...
Where it's an unlicensed animal.
Yeah, I would think that would be an issue, but more, you know, beyond that, I think that if there is a bylaw, which I'm not sure that, you know, when Casey says that it has to be tied up on the property, I guess that would come back to just what is the bylaw and how strong it is. And I don't know that it's that strong, but we could certainly pursue it, and if that bylaw isn't strong enough on the leash, you know, the unleashed animals, maybe we could do something about that.
That's where I was going.
I think we can look into it, sir, and we can either have Casey or Randy get in touch with you and keep you updated.
Again, not just for us, I'm more concerned for a little kid walking in the neighborhood.
Sure.
Well,
I can tell you, there will be a problem. It's going to be a problem.
It applies to a dog on the loose anywhere. I mean, it's a potential issue no matter where you are. So, I mean, your situation is an example of other situations like this where there's an animal on the loose.
Okay, thank you. Anything else for us, sir?
I appreciate your time, and hopefully we can get this thing moving forward.
Okay. Thank you for coming to us.
Have a good night, guys.
You also.
Thank you very much for your time.
Seeing no other citizens, no press time, no emergency business, what is the board's pleasure?
Move to adjourn and pay the bills.
Second the motion.
All in favor?
Aye.
We are adjourned, thank you.